Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 210, titled A Humbling Defeat. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with BucksandPitchforks.com editor-in-chief, Nick Villano, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in the confines of our own bunkers in North and South Jersey. Nick, we have a great guest coming on shortly. His name is Ryan Novozinsky, also known as NovoCop, from NJ.com, Star Ledger. Yeah, I just made that up a few minutes ago. Corny, right?
I mean, obviously, yes.
You know, he's on the beat, like beat reporter, cop on the beat. Maybe
crime beat.
Yeah. Or we got beat last night at the Rock.
That was bad.
Yeah.
That was
I
real
mean,
bad.
I still felt like a winner because I got to hang out with the players' families, the fathers, the moms, the wives and girlfriends of the New Jersey Devils. Had some sushi with Dawson Mercer's dad. Well, actually, he had the beef. I had the sushi actually with Paul Marino, John's dad. And, yeah, it was a good time. It was a really good time.
This sounds like the humblest of brags.
Yeah, well, I was starstruck. You know, I was actually stuck in an elevator.
What did you think of the jackets?
They were cool. Like, yeah. I was
dope
like,
jackets.
I was actually like really impressed. I was like, whoa. Like, and
the only thing I didn't like about the jackets, and I said this already, I don't like that they were signed. Like, they had the fake signature of each player.
Okay.
Like, if you were going to sell those, then okay. And, like, the wives got it first or whatever. It's just weird that, like, I think it's cool having their name and, like, the jersey number and, like, having their own design. I thought that was cool. It was just the signature. Like, it felt so unnecessary. But that's everything. Like, and I hate that because I'm only talking negatively about it because the design was so dope. The numbers, everything.
See that? That's where I was sitting. If you see that on the screen, is that pretty dope?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's like
really
you knew
cool.
who they were.
And here's the thing: is that the last time the Devils made the playoffs is when the Taylor Hall season, and it seemed like the wives and girlfriends were really close that season. If you remember they like had a party the night Taylor Hall got traded. Like it seemed like Paul Mary's wife and Taylor Hall's girlfriend, and I forget, is it Severson's wife? I don't remember if he's married, but
yeah, he is because I met his father-in-law.
I remember, I think Lindsey Vonn like hung out with them once when PK and Lindsey Vonn were engaged. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to see like that camaraderie.
Yeah,
it goes beyond just the team.
It's like a family support system right there in front of you. It was a lot of positive energy in the room.
And you know what's interesting? And we're having Ryan Novozinsky on tonight. And he wrote probably one of the best pieces of journalism I've read in a long time, talking about the Curtis Lazar situation. And maybe it was a little too close to home because my wife is 8.5 months pregnant, but talking about his wife going to labor, it's like 3 months early. On the day he got traded, then the visa issues, and then coming to the team, like just putting together that story, and then him coming and still fighting for a spot in the lineup. I'm not saying you have to hand him a spot in the lineup, but before he got injured, then he got injured. So it's just been a hell of a road for Lazar. But just reading that story by Ryan was, I mean, I gotta commend him, and I think you just told me he's on, so I guess I can ask him about it.
Yeah,
you want to introduce him?
No. We gotta build it up. Build it up.
It was honestly like I'm not just saying this because he's on here. I've worked in journalism for over a decade, and honestly, like I was. It's not much that can like take me back, especially in the sports journalism realm. But this one was just a fine piece of journalism.
Yeah.
So why don't you introduce him?
I will. And I'm going to invite him to the stage at any time. I don't know if Ryan knows this, but we'll tell him in a second. The big stage on Edison Place. His name is Ryan Novozinsky. He's a Devils reporter for Star Ledger and NJ.com. You can find him on Twitter at RyanNovo62. Ryan, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
Gentlemen, I am doing great. And I heard the Novo Cop nickname. I quite like that. So I mean,
you do?
I might have to stick with that.
Okay, you're on to something, Sam.
My co-host was making fun of me. I thought it was cool. You're on the beat. You're on the beat.
Listen,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, next time you break something huge in the offseason, and Novo Cop at it again. We'll get our friend Backhanded Devil to make you a graphic. I'm sure he'll get on that.
Yeah.
But Ryan, I was talking about
work, by the way. Tremendous stuff.
Yes, he and him getting the jersey was great. I do want to talk about your tremendous work. I was just kind of like talking up your article you did on Curtis Lazar. Can you just quickly tell us how that came about?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. So yesterday we were standing in the locker room. Everyone's kind of doing their thing. A lot of the national guys were there. A lot of the a lot of great reporters in that room because the stage is bright and the spotlight is on, and now people want to cover the Devils, right? So
finally,
right. So I'm standing in the locker room and kind of just the players that I think there was a meeting going on. So a lot of the players were kind of funneling out of the locker room, funneling in and out. And we kind of all gravitated towards Brendan Smith at one point, and his locker is right next to Curtis Lazar, who was also in the locker room at the time. And I'm standing there and I go up to Curtis Lazar and I ask him about his buddy Quinn, who was in the building. So I asked about Quinn Hughes, and the conversation kind of steers towards, we talk about, of course, at first, him being the first player to play with all three Hughes brothers and what that means to him.
That's cool.
And then it kind of gravitates towards, okay, you want to, what do you think the fans should say if they see your buddy Quinn? And then he goes on a thing. I thought it would just be buy him a beer situation. He did say that, but he led off with, tell him to come to Jersey. Tell him to come to Jersey and tell him to, he's got a spot right here next to his brother, next to both of his brothers. So, yeah, it was fun at first, and then I remember I saw, I can't remember where, if I heard it maybe on an away broadcast or something like that. Someone's had brought it to my attention that there was a little bit something more to his immigration issue than I guess met the eye. Forget who told me it, but I had heard that through, some of the, I guess channels or whatever. And what ended up happening was I just kind of offhanded, asked him about it. I was like, hey, so how would you kind of, evaluate your first couple months here or, month and a half or so? And he starts going on about how, the injury and how horrible that was. And then, he talked about his wife and how his wife was, his wife is still pregnant, but when he got traded, the day that he got traded, he had to rush to the hospital, and she went into labor 24 weeks. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, this is a phenomenal story. It was one of those moments that kind of clicks in your mind. I'm sure you've had this. I'm sure writers on your side have had this where it's I just have to go get to this right away, right? And I was so fascinated by it too, because I mean, to think about the struggle that a player has to go through, right? A fourth line grind guy like Curtis Lazar to grind his way into the lineup and then deal with the injury. And at the same time, he has to deal with, his pregnant wife and his 2-year-old son are on the other side of, not even the country, they're in a different country, but on the other side of the map here in North America. So I thought it was fascinating. And it was interesting yesterday that the press room at the Prudential Center was particularly cold. So I'm sitting in there shivering, literally shivering. And I thought to myself, I was like, I could just save this story for an off day. But I was like, no, this one got to me a little bit. I listened to you guys a little bit at the beginning here, and I appreciate what you said, but it was like you said, like it kind of got to me too. And I can't really even, sympathize with a situation like that because my girlfriend is not pregnant. But it's just one of those human kind of sides of stories that you can tell. And I think for Curtis, it almost in a way, I mean, I don't know if it was something that aided him, but it was something. He said the situation obviously aided him, but whenever people would kind of question, like, oh, like why was he out for so long, and like kind of ribbing him about it, I don't think he, you know, obviously perception's reality. You don't really know what's going on with people, behind in their minds. So, I think it's just it's a good lesson about reserving judgment, I guess. This dude dealt with a whole crapshoot of issues, and he's still dealing with it to this day. I will add one more tidbit about this story. So I asked him, I just asked, like, hey, like, is there any name planned for the new son that's coming? And he said, hey, maybe in a couple months here it'll be Stanley.
That's funny. I love that.
He's a good guy. He's a really good guy, and it was great.
Yeah, and honestly, like I don't know if I've ever said this, but when Jesper Bratt had his visa issue in, I think it was 2021, I kind of did some research on, like, what does that entail? And I kind of found out that the Devils have, at least at this time, I don't know if that's changed, but at that time, the Devils have had a long-standing person who deals with visa, who's one of the best in the business. So anytime you hear of a visa issue, apparently this woman like handles it, and she just knows the people to talk to, and always kind of gravitates towards that, and she takes care of it faster. So I know if there's a visa issue that's beyond that scope, it's not just a normal, like, well, what if he has to cross the border and COVID or whatever? It's not these normal things. It's usually beyond the scope of what those normal issues are. So that's just a little tidbit, maybe a story for the off season.
No, it's true. That's pretty fascinating.
But I kind of want to, we'd be hard pressed to not get into what was a depressing 3 hours of sports yesterday for us Devils fans. It was first. Can you tell me about what the atmosphere was like? It was your first playoff game ever. What was that like?
It was cool. I mean, really, like I always like to. I know there was that old debate whenever I forget what happened. I think it was when LeBron. This is going off on a tangent, kind of, but like when LeBron broke. What was it? Was it Will Chamberlain's record or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Will Chamberlain.
Yeah, you're right.
Everyone saw that picture where all those fans in the stands had their phones out, right?
Yeah.
And I understand. Like, I understand there's an aspect of soaking in the moment, and I did that many times yesterday. But there was just a part of me that was like, man, like the opening intro, the opening lineups, and Arlette singing the national anthem. It was the freaking coolest thing ever. So I really just like I sat there and I was recording, but for a split second there, I don't want to say I almost dropped my phone off the press box, but but like I was so zoned into what was happening, and it was pretty special because, like, quite frankly, like, this is a starved fan base, as you know. So to get this first round and to get back at the Rock, it was a special moment. So I was, just sitting there kind of in awe, and then you get the early chants of Igor and the taunting there, and then it turned into actual Igor chants by the end of the game, as you know. Yeah, it was a fun day. It was a fun day. I'm sure not a great day for a lot of Devils fans, but certainly an experience.
And here's the thing: is that the anticipation of the game, everybody kind of talking about it. You go on Twitter, and people were talking about the game starting at like 7 a.m. and just all day. It's just Devils fans excited about it, and even like my writers, like we put out a ton of work because everybody's excited to talk and write about this. So, but at the end, like you said, not a great performance. I gotta ask: do you feel differently today than you did, 26 hours ago?
It's one of those, like, I do, but I don't, but I do, but I don't kind of things. Like, it's one of those, mind wrestling things. Look, there's a lot of negative about yesterday, right? There's also a lot of caveats, I would say. For example, I think the desperation that the Rangers played with on defense, especially, I just don't think that that's the way they clog the lanes. I don't think that's something that you're going to get on a consistent basis, especially at 5-on-5 play. I think their penalty kill is phenomenal, but I just don't know how sustainable it is 5-on-5. Now there is also an aspect of the Rangers block a lot of shots, and they've been able to block a lot of the shots against the Devils this year. I mean, good Lord, I think it was 20 against the Devils in their last game in March, maybe 19. I forget. I was researching this today. And then there was other games where it was upwards to 25, 30. So the Rangers are going to block a lot of shots. They're going to play with a desperation, especially on this stage where they're desperate for a Stanley Cup too. They need to satisfy their fan base. But that aggression on defense, I just don't know how long withstanding that is on a 7-game series. I think you're going to start to see semblances of breakdowns on their end, especially with when these Devils kind of get settled in. They've been a bad first period team all year, very bad. But when you boil it down, yesterday was kind of like the ultimate first period for them, because it's like, yeah, like you get the first period, but you also get the playoff first period. Now, I do think that there's also, I saw some chatter about this on the timeline today. The aspect of playoff hockey is definitely a new thing for this team, but a lot of the battles of yesterday, it very much had a lot of similarities to some of these regular season battles with this team. So, I think that if they kind of just stick to what worked in the regular season, I know that that's very vague and very broad, but use that quick speed, right, and try to counter attack this tough Rangers attack, who I do not think defensively is as sustainable as their performance was last night. And I think getting inside and leaning on guys like a Timo Meier, like a Nico Hischier, like a Dawson Mercer, Nathan Bastian, even guys that can crash inside and start peppering this team with those high danger chances, with those chances from the slots, chances from the slot. So eventually it's going to give, right? Like Shesterkin is amazing, but the Devils have been able to get past him a whole hell of a lot this year. And I don't know about you, Nick, but I think if they, I think the main goal of a power play is to get more than a 0 shots up. So maybe if they get more than 0 shots up, it'll things will start to tip in their favor.
When I tell you that the Devils power play did as good as it would have with me, you, and Sam on it, that's not good. It's definitely bad. I am not a good hockey player, and Sam is more of a goalie than anything. So I don't know how good you are, Ryan, but
no.
Sam's got the gear.
I am wide and I could screen the goalie. I'm very good.
That's fair. You go. Listen. I don't know if we could have gotten a shot.
Just get me a burger from American Whiskey, and I could definitely screen the goalie.
Listen, I don't know if we could have gotten a shot, but I know we couldn't have gotten less than the Devils got. That's for sure. So are you kind of worried about the power play? Do you think that's something that we need to fix? Is it something like you were there, you kind of got that bird's eye view, so you're seeing it a little bit differently than we are from home, and even in the arena, it's just a different purview? Or did you see something in the power play you're like, you can build off this, or was it just throw out the entire thing? Like, can this be fixed?
One of the things that kind of stuck out to me today at today's skate was just kind of rewatching it. Lindy talked about this team, that power play unit, both power play units, in fact, they tried to find the perfect chance, right? They were trying to get too, I guess, cutesy with their passing, and it, I mean, that power play looked like, I forget what game it was. It must have been the first game. I was in the press box in Philadelphia, and I ran into John Butchergross, and we were talking about the Devils power play, and he was like, they are like, I mean, they're just bouncing it back and forth to each other, just ricocheting off each other's stick. Like they're not setting. It's like Hoosiers, right? Like what's the thing from Hoosiers? You pass however many times before you shoot. Like it looked like that. Like they were trying to get a little bit too much like that in order to set up the perfect chance. Where when I'm watching from the bird's eye view there, it looked like they had several perfect chances that they just simply did not fire away. And it doesn't have to be the perfect chance, I don't think. Like, you're going to get some silliness in playoff hockey, right? Like, I know the goaltender's good, but maybe, maybe that's what makes Shesterkin tick a little bit. Like, the fact that, when he looks at a perfect chance, he can kind of look at it and he's like, oh, I can stop this. He got that confidence to him, of course. Maybe if it's like kind of an off chance, maybe it'll have better luck. I don't know. I know the Devils have had some weird power play goals this year. So I wouldn't be surprised that just fire it some more, man. I mean, you cannot sit there and conceivably have 0 power play shots on four attempts. Like, I mean, that's ridiculous. So it doesn't necessarily worry me right now. I don't think they have to blow it up, of course, but I think some of the concerns come with just the lack of execution there, maybe the nerves there, maybe I don't even know what else you can chalk it up to, but I think it's worked in the regular season, and I think there's too much talent on that top unit in order for it not to. Just fire the puck. I mean, like, one of my subheads for my story tomorrow is just shoot the damn puck. I mean, that's really what I think it boils down to. I mean, I don't even know what else you can chalk it up to. Just do that.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the stat line, and it's a lot in the Devils' favor, weirdly, because they lost 5-1.
Yeah, it is.
It's they traditional stats. They had more shots, they had more hits, they had more other things that kind of went down the line, and in the non-traditional stats, the high danger chances they let in, the chances they destroyed the Rangers in just pure chances.
They did,
but that has a lot to do with the blocks and things like that. So that's kind of a flawed stat, but still, it just showed that they were trying to pepper with chances. I think that they would get stuck in a place where they were looking for the perfect shot and they were out of options, so they had to take a terrible shot. I think that's kind of like where it's like, make one more pass when you're like at a really decent shot, but I need the perfect shot. Well, now I'm out of options because I'm stuck, So it just kind of looked like they overthought everything, and I think that was kind of like the theme. I listened to a lot of the quotes from the post game. Dan Rice kind of got a lot of quotes from me as well. And the word that stuck out to me, as far as like the post game, whatever you're saying, is they all kind of admitted they had jitters. Jitters was a word you don't hear very often, so it sticks out when 4 different people say the word jitters in post game quotes. Was there anything else that kind of stood out to you from what people were saying in the locker room after the game?
My favorite was Nico, because he kind of went anti-jitters. He definitely mentioned it, but I think I forget who asked it. Honestly, I think it was Fooch from MSG. Fooch asked, just about that jitters and kind of, whether experience played into it or whatnot. And Nico looked and he kind of like scoffed a little bit, and he was like, we don't even want to talk about that kind of thing. Now, granted, he did bring it up, but I think that's kind of a good mindset, because I think, like it was a unique thing for sure. Like, to bring up jitters all the time, it was. I mean, I don't think I've seen that, especially with a team that's as prone to coach speak as this team is sometimes. For them to just openly admit it was pretty fascinating to me too. So I would say, just Nico just sitting there and saying like, hey, like, this is not. We don't want to think about that. I think that kind of is good for the team captain to say that, right? So that message could maybe permeate till, to tomorrow or Saturday or what have you, because that they can't, like, I understand that this is 10 of their first playoff, 10 of them, their first playoff series, 6 in the lineup last night, their first playoff game. They got one now. I mean, it's so simple, and it's kind of a weird thing to think about, but look, you got a game under your belt now. Just don't use the dang jitters as an excuse anymore. You know what it takes now. Go in there and establish yourself as the quick Devils again, man. I mean, you got to do that. I think what goes underrated too is Vitek Vanacek last night. I mean, I would only chalk up 1, maybe 2. I would probably say 2 of the goals last night were probably on Vanacek. I think the jitters kind of spoiled through there. So I would say, it kind of trickled throughout the entire team, right? I think Nico actually played pretty great. I think if you'll remember, like there was a shift that his line had. I think it was Tatar who had a really nice chance from the slot at the end of the first
Yeah.
period. If his line did not have that boost like they had at the end of the first, the Devils would have had 2 shots on goal in the first, and that would have tied a season low. So
Yeah.
jitters, yeah, but throw that out. Like Nico said, throw it out and really kind of remind this team who the Devils are, right? There's a reason you beat this team 3 times in the regular season. There's a reason that their record, I can't remember what the exact win total is. I think it's in the 20s though. When they lose a
Yeah.
game this year, they win the next game. So that and most of the time at least that happens. They've not gone on many losing streaks. So yeah, I would just say that, kind of reestablish who the Devils are, right? You got the nerves out of your system. Go do it.
So kind of like on that point, one of the things I've noticed, and I don't have the stats to back it up, but it's just something I've like always paid attention to, is that they've always played better on shorter rest. And I kind of attributed a lot of that slow start too. They've been off since last Thursday, so it's what, like 5 or 6 days rest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that? I mean, you've been watching this team. You know when it's like, they play well on back to backs, which is weird, but they always play well when they're like. It seems like sometimes they do come on the ice cold when they have a long layoff, and like more than other teams. Do you see that now that we're going to go every other day? Do you see that being an advantage for a young team like the Devils?
I have the stats for you. So
Okay.
in back to backs, they are 15-8-1 this year. Okay.
Oh.
Now when this gets striking is this. In the first game, they're 6-5-1. Okay. And a lot of times the back to backs will come with a couple days of rest before then, right? The second game, they're 9-3-0. Okay. Now, look, regular
wild.
season, of course. But I think that this team, yeah, I think that the young factor of it, the energy factor, this team, they play with a lot of speed, and they quite frankly have not slowed down this season. I mean, you look back to that Islanders game that came, oh God, must have been in October, maybe early November.
Yeah.
That was the first game where I think it was Barzell. He said, "Oh my God, like this, we're exhausted because this team was so fast." I thought to myself then, I was like, "Yeah, they played really fast that game. Like this, how can they sustain this?" They did, and they went 11-7 a little bit after that too. So,
Yeah.
and they've trickled that and here and there as well. So, but yeah, I mean, look, I think that this team, they kind of thrive off not just adversity, but a little bit of like just the energy factor. They like being energized. They like being you just can't win them despite how fast they are. You just can't win them. So I think that's definitely an advantage for this team, and it kind of goes hand in hand with, like I said, with the defensive performance the Rangers had yesterday, and that Shesterkin had, on top of that, was incredible. But I don't think that I trust Shesterkin to stay consistent with some of his ridiculous saves, but I don't necessarily trust the Rangers defense to stay consistent with that, especially when they're going to be winded themselves. There's a lot of old guys on that team, and guys that they themselves like are kind of readjusting to the playoff atmosphere too. So I think you asked me at the beginning of the show, did anything change in my perception of the Devils? Honestly, like I would say no. I would say we've seen stuff like this, instances like this, a lot of the season, right?
Yeah.
Patches of adversity, and what will concern me is if they cannot respond through this adversity with a win tomorrow.
So my last question for you is, and I'm going to kind of frame it a little bit differently, because the way I asked it originally, I'm not, you've answered it too. So, but if you had to change one thing that says they don't win if they don't change this one thing, there's a couple things that you can, Vanich, I guess, makes the saves. The offense has to get more high danger changes, but you had to say, you have to change this one thing to win this series. What would you pinpoint that the Devils have to make that change?
The one thing, it's easier said than done. You gotta establish a net front. I mean, I looked at so many instances yesterday where Like obviously New York clogged the lane and they were good in front of the crease, of course, but that's how they blocked a lot of their shots. There was no pressure there, right? Like we looked at the shot chart at the attempt chart at the end of the first period. It was ridiculous. Like New York was able to pile a lot of chances, like in that high slot, low slot, dangerous areas. The Devils was like I don't even know, like it was just like a freaking I can't think of an analogy right now, so it's really kind of bothering me. But it was like a chart with a lot of dots on it scattered about,
Yeah.
a Jackson Pollock painting, if you will.
There you go.
So it was a mess, and
Yeah.
I would just say if you can utilize those guys, like I mentioned before, guys like Timo, guys like Nico, guys like Nathan Bastian, even with I would just say that's going to kind of suit your strengths there. Establish that net fronts, because this Rangers team is physical and they proved that they're going to be physical in this series. I know that the narrative is that the Devils are not. They're just that speedy, quick, skilled kind of team, the modern age of hockey, if you will. But they have guys, man. I mean, Fitzgerald didn't go get Timo Meier just because of his incredible shooting abilities. It helped, but he's a physical guy too. And there's a reason he's on the bumper on the power play. Like he likes playing on the bumper on the power play. He likes being kind of in those dangerous areas. That's where he thrives the most. So establishing that, and I think Dawson Mercer too is an underrated net front guy too. He's almost tiny looking, but like he's got a good physicality and an edge to him, which I really like. I think guys like that can really just kind of carry you in this series, right? So it sounds simple. It sounds kind of like they could do it, but they also definitely could not do it tomorrow. But they got to try, man. I mean, get in there, start forcing some rebound opportunities, right? Like some rebound chances, like get that, and that's how you'll break Shesterkin. I remember there was one of it was the power play goal in the March 30th game. It was Timo, and he was kind of just like passing back and forth with Jack, a little give and go, and he just fired it right in front of Shesterkin from the high slot, and that's how you get it, right? Like you just get in those areas, and that's how you get past him. Like it's a tough challenge, but you can do it. You've done it 3 times.
You mentioned Bastian a couple times, and Bastian had kind of a bizarre just game in general. He only played 7 minutes. But he had 2 of the best chances of the entire game. The wraparound chance was phenomenal, and then off the Ryan Graves post hit, I still have no idea how that didn't go in the net. The 2 ones that I'm still just like trying to figure out, I'm like going back to high school geometry class to be like, all right, so the Nico one in the 5-hole, like how did that end up going sideways? I still didn't see where that hit. And then the Nathan Bastian one, I don't know where it went. He shot it at an open net, and it didn't go in, and it ended up like 10 feet away. But again, him being there gave them probably their best opportunity to score at 5v5 or at any point that's not a Jack Hughes penalty shot. He had these opportunities, and he always seems to get there. I feel like he's always like he always ends up in the doghouse for some reason for the way he starts games, and then he'll talk his way out of the doghouse and then have these phenomenal finishes. I think that Bastian is very big to this team. He also, I think, I don't know if the injury impacted this, but I know last year he led the team in hits by like a ton, by like almost double what McLeod did. And then this year, I know he was on pace to do that before the injury. But again, that's the kind of guy I want on the ice when things seem to be like you just need a dirty goal. And the Devils needed a dirty goal so bad. So I agree with you. I think that's absolutely the one thing you want. The power play is going to probably figure itself out. The penalty kill, just don't go to the box. That's kind of like you have to do it with the Rangers.
You can't have those Miles Wood first period penalties. I mean, that was bad.
That was such a dumb penalty. Like how, and I gotta hand it to it. I didn't love the officiating crew. I think on both sides they were just calling a lot. They were calling a lot of ticky-tack stuff that you shouldn't be calling in the playoffs. But maybe they were just establishing their worth, or I don't know, whatever. But again, Wood has put himself in that position too many times to get the benefit of the doubt. You can't do that, or you're not going to play. Like that's, and I wouldn't be. Would you be surprised if he didn't end up in the lineup tomorrow?
It's a good question. I think I lean towards yes. I would be
Okay.
surprised, and only because we haven't seen him scratched at all this season,
That's
right?
true.
It's if Lindy was gonna send a message, I feel like doing it in game, what was it, 41 against
Yeah.
Dallas. Where he did score. Um, I think that you were gonna see it then, because I think that was a really bad stretch of his season. I think that was like the pinnacle of his 2 or 3 month goalless drought.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I don't know what it is. I've asked a couple times now, um, and the answer just always boils down to, he adds a lot of quickness, a lot of veteran presence, and what have you. But you remember, you guys of course remember when Timo at the beginning of his tenure in New Jersey took the late game penalties, the costly penalties.
Yeah.
That Timo can get away with it because he's Timo Meyer, right? Like, he's gonna score you some goals. He's gonna start hitting in his offensive zone. Miles Wood, I just don't really see it. I mean, I just don't really see it.
I always think
Oh
he
man.
must be like the best practice player of all time with the speed and just like kind of his attitude and his fun lovingness, but then just like seeing that speed and just like being like, wow, like honestly, like somebody's going to give him $4 million this year because he's just going to skate in front of somebody. They'd be like, we got to give this guy a lot of money. Like, it's just, I don't think it's going to be the Devils just because of the math of it all. Like, I don't know how they would fit that in, but somebody's going to give him more money than you expect. And, I think it's just the hope. It's like you keep seeing him be like, if he could just do this, and you've seen him do it in games before, especially, I don't remember if it was last year where he played really well, but he just figured out how to shoot one year. And like
Yeah.
earlier this year, when he gets on a streak and he'll score 4 goals in 3 games. And they're all
What did he have? He
insane
had like a
goals.
two game goal streak in the last like 2 games, or maybe even 3,
Yeah. I think it
or
was
something
3.
ridiculous like that. I
I
can't
think,
remember.
what do you have, like 4 in 3 games to end the year, something
Yeah.
like he looked decent. So it's
Mhm.
hard, but you do have more than you've ever had with Igor Sharangovich and Curtis Lazar on the bench. So it's definitely a conversation. And then there's the whole Luke Hughes conversation where you can go 11-7. I hope to goodness they don't, but it's there. You need offense.
The
So
discrepancy there, the weird discrepancy there. You're right, it is there. I think this was, I forget what happened. I think Lindy might have said it at the end of a press conference or something like that. He outwardly admitted that he does not like playing 11-7. Okay, this was towards the end of the season. It might have even been before the Rangers game, the last
okay.
Rangers game of the regular season. What are you doing it for then, man? I mean, I don't see it. So look, I think that of course it's an option. And if you think that it's apt enough to if Siegenthaler has a bad game here and there, like a really bad game where Lindy hasn't been afraid to scratch him this year, I don't know who it would be, and I'm just speculating, quite frankly. But if he has like a really bad game, inexcusable game in the playoffs, I could see maybe that happening where you can keep the 6 defensemen and slide Luke in. Because man, I'm telling you too, like Luke on the second power play, come on, I like it.
I honestly, like, when the AHL playoffs end and if the Devils are still in it, just put, just for the power play, just put Nemitz and Luke out there. Just like, how much better would that second line look if you had Nemitz?
Oh my God.
Man, I that's for another day. Ryan, I've taken enough of your time. I want to give you some time to plug what you got coming out, what you have already out. Just let everybody know where they can find your work and some interesting articles you got coming out this week.
Yeah, so I mean, you can find my work nj.com/devils. We got a lot of people covering the Devils for us this week. Goodness, the grind right now, Nick. It's been a busy week, man. I mean, I'll tell you what, like, I have never had a more stressful one, but a more good, like a more fun one. Like, it's been awesome. Like the kind of the festivities of it, I guess. Yeah, nj.com/devils. You can find me with where is it down there? Yeah,
Yes.
at Ryan Novo62 on Twitter. Although maybe I'll change that up now that I guess the check mark will go away tomorrow, right? so maybe you can change the old username up, but no, I'll probably just keep it. But yeah, I mean, look, it's been a fun week. We got some good stuff coming out. Just some more preview stuff. What the Devils can do to fix, much like we just talked about, what they could do to fix, and just kind of gonna go work around the locker room a little bit, see what I can figure out tomorrow, see if there's anything interesting that kind of meets the eye tomorrow. But yeah, no, I'm fired up about it. It's really been fun so far, and this year has been spectacular. I really thought I'd be vacationing at this point. When I was planning things out, the season out at the beginning of the year, but I'm not.
Yeah, you're still going. I have to ask, what's the 62?
Oh, that was when I played high school football. That was my number.
That was my number in high school football. That's
like
wild.
I would say I was like 100 pounds heavier. No, not 100. I was like 80 pounds heavier. So I was a lineman.
Okay, I was a defensive and offensive lineman. I was probably about the same size because I also wrestled, but just take the weight from here and put it here and here and here. It was a lot different way. It was 225, but I was I looked like the ultimate warrior out there. But anyway, yeah. So that's funny. Hey, you could be Ryan Novocop. I don't think that's taken. So
I could be Ryan Novocop.
We'll see. You have a
there
world
could,
of possibilities
there could be a
tomorrow.
burner account in the works.
Sam, don't steal his name. You can't gift him the
I
name.
don't do that. I don't do that stuff to begin with, anyway.
But Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have you on again soon. Hopefully, while we're still in the playoffs, maybe talking Stanley Cup final. But right now, we got to fix the Devils. So, Ryan, thanks for coming on and spending some time with us.
Gentlemen, appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and come by American Whiskey anytime.
I will. I'll see what I can do before the series comes to a close. I'll see what I can do, Sam.
Okay, yeah. Meet us at the stage. They kicked us outside in the middle of the series.
You guys got you said you got the dads there too, right?
The dads.
John Marino's dad. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
John
You were
Marino's
hanging with
dad.
John Marino's dad.
Yeah. Paul Marino. Yeah, he's
there
excited.
you go. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, stop by.
We're doing something there. Yeah, stop by, Ryan. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan. That is Ryan Novozinsky of NJ.com, Star Ledger. Find him on Twitter at RyanNovo62.
Yeah, Sam. I was a backup offensive lineman.
Wow.
I never really played much, but I played. I played enough in my senior year, but I wore that number 62 proudly.
Wow.
It was funny though, because they always give you a cheerleader, and my cheerleader was a freshman on the varsity cheerleading team, and I was a senior. So I have we don't have any idea who this person is. But they always get two players that they decorate their lockers and give you stuff or whatever. And me and my friends were always so excited about it. But then we learned that they did it out of their own money. And we're oh. And she's like, "Well, what do you want?" You're you're 13 years old. What can you afford? She's like, "Well, not much." I'm like, "Okay." So it was just kind of funny. I don't know why I brought up that story right after the Ryan Novo interview. This is Emily Kaplan all over again. I went on a tangent. I failed. So we're just going to move on,
Hey,
Sam.
you know what? Get out I think you have the playoff jitters right now. So
Listen, I'm a good storyteller. Every job that I have is telling stories, and then sometimes I have to talk about myself on this, and I vomit on myself.
In the playoffs? You're going to do it in the playoffs?
I did in the playoffs.
All right.
But here's the thing. The thing that really stuck out to me, Sam, and I brought this up, is that he brought up Nathan Bastian multiple times.
Yeah.
And Nathan Bastian played 7 minutes and 40 seconds. The only person who played less is Miles Woodley yesterday. And, his numbers aren't phenomenal. His numbers aren't great. But I would imagine his numbers in the second half of the game are so much better than numbers in his first half of the game. And the fact, he just got those two amazing chances, and he didn't bury them, I get it. But he just looks so much better than a lot of the other players out there on offense. And The one thing I do think Lindy has to change these lines. I don't like these lines. I get the thought. The thought was there. I've never seen it really work. This Timo Meyer on the third line thing doesn't work for me. Make the third line a third line. Jesper Boquist, Eric Halla, and, I guess you could put Palat. Palat probably makes the most sense on that. Palat had a really good chance, too. Tatar had that really good chance. It's not like the Devils didn't get chances. But they should have had more. You gotta try to get to 40 shots.
Nick, I sat downstairs yesterday. I got a full view, like close-up view, what was going on. It all comes back down to the beefalytics, and also, they couldn't get inside. They couldn't get there was a lot of hesitation. They were tentative. Even when they had a chance, like there was one where John Marino was he broke through the middle. He passed the puck. I forgot who it was. And instead of going hard to the net, it's just too many passes. It passed over the side. You had a clear lane and clear shot on Shesterkin. Yep. So if the Devils, they're going to have to win ugly. They're a pretty team, the Devils. They can be fancy, but right now they got to get inside. And again, can they go hard to the net? They started to, but the game was over at that point. So that's what they need to do.
I think you just got to change everything. I think you got to change the defensive pairings. I want to see. I think you're fine with Siegenthaler and Hamilton. I don't think Siegenthaler had a terrible game or had a great game, but I also don't think it was terrible. Hamilton was good. He was fine. He wasn't what I need him to be, but he's definitely not on the top of my list of people who I have a problem with. Marino, again, I don't think they got a ton of high danger chances. The penalty kill was atrocious, just atrocious. So that's one thing. But the Marino-Graves pairing, I just don't think works. I think Marino would do better with Kevin Ball, and Graves would do better with Severson. I think you do a Graves-Severson second line. How much time did Severson have? He ended up with 21 minutes. He's just not they have him on the third line, but he's not your third line defenseman. You trust him to get the job done, and I'm trying to see. He was Severson was only on the ice for 1 goal against, which, Hamilton was on for 2, Marino was on for 3, Graves was on for 3, Siegenthaler was on for 1. I liked a lot of what I saw from Brian Graves because he just made a lot of plays. He was on the ice for 3 goals, but I think that's probably has a lot to do with. Let me just see. Yeah, they were on for 1. Marino and Graves were on for 1 even strength goal. So, it is what it is being on the ice for power play goals. The penalty kill wasn't good. Nobody's going to tell you it was. The power play was even worse. Nobody's going to tell you anything different. But I just think when you look at this team as a whole, and the things they did right were just So I wrote an article yesterday, Sam, about the 3 things the Devils could not do if they wanted to win the series, and they did all of them. You can't go in the penalty box. Vitek Vanacek cannot be below average, and you have to get high danger chances on Shesterkin. A lot of them. A lot of them. I think in games they were getting 15, 16 on Shesterkin, except for that. What was that first game? November? The November game is when they just kind of evened out with the Rangers. They ended up winning because everything was going right in November. But I think they went 9-9, I think. But even in that last game where it was 2-1, it didn't seem like they got a ton of high danger chances, but they got 15, which is way above average. And last night they got, what did they get last night? They got 12, which sounds like similar, but it's not. Especially when you got 2 in the first period. So you're always scratching and clawing up. You know, they had that ridiculous second period where they just peppered them and they looked like the better team. But then the Rangers scored that third goal, and that was a backbreaker because the Devils were just playing better than the Rangers. Honestly, the Devils outplayed the Rangers for 2 periods. The problem was they couldn't score. When your only goal comes on a penalty shot from your best player, you can't rely on that. You can't rely on breakaways. You know, and honestly, if the PK is going to play that badly, just put Jack Hughes on it, because at least he could break one. Oh, no, and I'm kind of being facetious. But let me be serious for a second. If your penalty kill is going to play that terribly, you need to have Igor Sharangovich in the lineup. Because he's a decent power or penalty killer who can break one. He's really good at just taking the puck and just going. And, you know, I know you got Mercer there. I've just never liked Mercer as a penalty killer. I love Mercer as a player. I will fight till the death for him. But it just feels like he's a two-way forward, so you think he's good at killing penalties. And I've just looked at all the data, and he's the worst penalty-killing forward on the team. You know, it goes Igor's the best. Igor Sharangovich is the best. Then I think it's McLeod, Hischier, Bastian. Hold on. I can't remember if it's Bastian or actually I could just look at this. Who's playing most? Sorry, this is terrible podcasting. It's Bastian. Yeah, so it goes. Igor is like much better than everybody. Then you got McLeod, and then you got Hischier, and then you got Bastian, and then the fifth guy is Mercer. So when Sharangovich is in the lineup, you don't have to play Mercer on the penalty kill, but when he's not, you do, and it just takes a step down. Mercer's not a bad penalty killer when you take him against the average in the league, but you're A, not facing an average power play, you're facing one of the elite power plays in the NHL. And B, this is not an average penalty killing unit. This is one of the elite penalty killing units in the league. I think they finished 4th in the league at killing penalties. But you saw the drop off yesterday. You saw that this team just doesn't. They were so bad, so bad, and they won a couple of the faceoffs. Sam, they won a couple of those initial faceoffs at the start of the power play, and they still gave up a goal. They couldn't even clear it from the zone from there. I feel like I've talked a lot right there.
Yeah. You made a lot of good points, though. You know,
you got to make changes to the lineup, whether you're changing the lines. I think I agree with Ryan. You're not going to sit Miles Wood because of the hope. It's like, you always stick with what you know, and they know that Miles Wood has that game-breaking ability, and they think they need that in the series, although I don't agree. But that's fine. They think that, so they're going to go with it. I'm worried they're going to sit Bastian. I'm going to be honest, Sam. I think they're going to sit Bastian and put in Lazar. Which is just not the move I think that they should make.
No. Because the net front presence is lacking. Now, to his credit, Timo Meier, I mean, he took a hard spill trying to go hard to the net last night. So they need to continue that. That's something you build on. It's not something, okay, you just do. As the series goes on, that eventually that wall will break, the Rangers. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Sam. I just something in my gut tells me we're going to see. There's too many good players on the bench between Luke Hughes, Brendan Smith, Igor Sharangovich, and Curtis Lazar. There's too much talent there. You're going to see changes to the lineup. And I just got, he said that he thinks that Siegenthaler, Ryan said that he thinks that it could be Siegenthaler who might sit at some point. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is that I do need to see more to John Marino. He's the one who like kind of stuck out. I think he's hurt, honestly. Just something seems off. Because he's making the right decisions. Like his hockey IQ is there, but just something seems off. So I think that he might be hurt. But you're not going to sit Marino because he's right-handed for Hughes or Smith, I guess. But Hughes would just make the most sense. I think if you lose tomorrow night, I think you see wholesale changes.
Yeah.
Ruff's done it before. I think Luke Hughes is in the lineup. I think Sharon Govich is in the lineup. I think they could go 11-7. I think they could go Luke Hughes on a line with Dougie Hamilton. I think you just go, full blitzkrieg freaking craziness with that line. Like that would just be like, we're going volatility, and we want to see what happens. And maybe that's not the worst, idea. The Rangers only got 23 shots yesterday, Sam. 23 shots on goal and 4 goals. I can't sit here and say outside of the penalty kill, I can't say the defense didn't do their job. Right? They allowed, 8? Hold on. They allowed 10 high-danger chances the entire game. And 4 after the first period. It was a slow start. I do think the long layoff stinks. And Luke Garrison, one of the guys on my team, pointed out to me that, well, the Rangers had the same layoff, and I get that, and that's a very good point. But the Devils have been shown to have an issue with the layoff, and I wouldn't be floored if they win this in 5. I also wouldn't be floored if they lose this in 5. I think at this point, anything is on the table. Anything is on the table because they got punched in the mouth. And it's happened to them before the season. But it's different when you get punched in the mouth in the playoffs because you have to really take into account that you're now dealing with your livelihood here. Like, your season could end sooner. You could lose, a lot of these free agents will lose a lot of money if they get knocked out in the first round. Ryan Graves, Miles Wood, Damon Severson, all these players are, maybe not Severson. Severson's kind of in this different stratosphere when it comes to free agency, but everybody else, they're going to lose a lot. Tomas Tatar is going to lose a lot of money if he flames out in the playoffs again. That's now 3 teams. I can't remember for the life of me what he did in Detroit in the playoffs, but this is now 3 teams that he would have failed with in the playoffs, if that's the case. There's a lot of money on the line, Sam. There's a lot of, personality, a lot of ego, a lot of everything. And beyond all that, Sam, everything is on the line for Lindy Ruff. I said I was going to write about this a little while ago, but I just haven't had the time. I'll probably write about this Friday. We'll see. Because it'll be weird to write about this if they go down 0-2.
Yeah.
If they win on Friday, if they win tomorrow, I'll write on Friday. Lindy Ruff could become a Hall of Fame coach if he goes out on top.
Oh, yeah. Like Pat Burns.
If he goes out on top, because, a lot of these voters just look at the numbers. And I feel like Lindy Ruff, he's somebody who took a while to evolve. I think it took until his second season with the Devils to evolve into today's game. I think in Dallas he leaned heavily on his stars, but last year was clearly a different coach. And I think it ended up being the right decision to stick with Ruff. There's a couple factors. A, from what I remember, he signed a 3-year deal when they signed him. I'm almost positive it was 3. If somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And there has been no word of an extension. And I don't see why they would sign him to an extension unless they did it in the middle of this year. So he might be going into his own free agency. That being said, he's 63 years old. he might not ever get a team as good as this again. Say what you want about the Devils growing and getting better from here, but 112 points is 112 points. There's a reason the Devils have never done this in the existence of its history. They've had some great teams. I think they won, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, they have won a President's Trophy before, right?
No, never happened.
They've never won the President's?
No, not even in 2001 because Colorado did.
Okay. But they won the Eastern Conference on multiple occasions. They won the division on multiple occasions. So,
yep.
Like, won the Eastern Conference like they were the number one seed. That's happened at least twice, right?
Yeah.
So, they've won the Metro, or not the Metro. They've won the Atlantic multiple times. So, they've had great seasons, but they've never done this. You're going to expect a little regular season regression. And I don't know if that's going to continue on to the postseason for future years. But you gotta, say what you want about this being a learning year. But Lindy Ruff only has so many more shots at this, and he might retire after this year. You just don't know. So if he retires on top, it would mean the world for his case as a Hall of Famer. And, people would start talking about how he got screwed out of that Buffalo one in 1999.
Yeah.
But that's all I got, Sam. I've talked a lot. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to hold them because I don't want to kind of go into Negativeville. I'm still positive about this team. I put a bet on the Devils when they were down 3-0, or 3-0, right? Yeah, they went down 3-0. I put a bet on this team because I do believe that this team is capable of bouncing back. I think they win tomorrow night, and I think they win Game 1 in New York. Actually, let me say this. I think they win tomorrow night, and I think they split New York. I said Game 3, and it just didn't feel right. I think they win Game 3 or Game 4. They win tomorrow night. I think they come back to New Jersey with home ice advantage. And then it's anybody's ball game.
Well, let's sure hope so that they can get home ice back.
Yeah, I don't think it's that important because they played so well on the road.
Yeah.
And the road is across the river. It's not that far.
It'll be like a Devils home game.
I got to say, there were a lot of Rangers fans there, Sam, but there wasn't like an overwhelming amount.
Actually, are you basing on TV?
Yeah, I know the upper bowl. Like I look at Twitter pictures. I know the upper bowl was mostly Devils fans, and the lower bowl was about 60-40.
The Ranger fans that occupied the lower bowl were all strategically placed where the cameras. Like I look for that kind of stuff. Yeah, because there were tons of Devils fans. I thought, based on what I saw, 70-30, 75-25. It wasn't a sea of blue. It was.
And here's the thing: is that, and that was the thing. There was a lot of Twitter reaction to that. And you're right. Maybe that was a strategic showing, but
and just remember, people, because the Ranger fans will say, "Oh, you can't even sell out your own building. Look at all the empty seats." But they're pointing at where the old fire lounge was. People are eating up top.
Yeah,
it's and that's where the TV cameras are.
Yeah,
So
you could just tell with the chants. Like the "Let's Go Devils" chants were still loud and audible when they were down 3-0.
Yeah,
and the cheering for Jack Hughes' goal was still louder than we heard for any of the Rangers' goals.
Yeah,
it just wasn't. It was very clear with the chanting. Even when they had the Igor chant towards the end of the game, it was muted as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. What are you plugging?
Pucksandpitchforks.com. We have a million articles. I don't even know anymore, Sam. So the ones we put out today, David Williams wrote that the Devils are going to win this series despite the Game 1 loss. Dan Rice has all of your quotes. Jittery. Jittery was the word of the day yesterday. There was jitters, jittery, jitterbug, jitterbug. Just he kind of talked to a couple of the players. Halla, he talked to Ruff. I believe he talked to Mercer. Or maybe it was T-shirt. Sorry. But yeah, check that out. Dan Rice's article is up on pucksandpitchforks.com. I wrote an article, 3 reasons we shouldn't be worried yet. Vinny Parisi wrote about the special teams. David Holliday wrote about the disappointing playoff opener. Charlie Borges Jr. wrote the rapid reaction to that, so go check that out. That's always fun. I do want to point out, Sam, and I brought this up, I wrote a 3 keys to victory versus the Rangers, and we failed at all 3. So go check out why I'm the smartest man alive, because I wrote this before yesterday's game. I'm just kidding, obviously, but kind of not, because I pinpointed exactly how you lose to the Rangers, and they did all 3. So, maybe if Andrew Burnett gets a head coaching gig, maybe I can call Lindy, get on that bench. Hey, I'll get paid a lot of money to tell them to stop taking penalties. That if that is in my future, I'm here for it.
Never know. Is that it, Nick?
Yeah, I got to write some stuff for the front page for Fansided tomorrow, so there's going to be a couple football articles out. I don't think I have anything in the docket to edit, so I'll probably write something tomorrow, but just go to pucksandpitchforks.com. We're going to have a bunch of stuff at all times. Every day we have new articles.
All right, so I got a lot of things to plug. Before I start plugging, thank you to Stephen Herschel for the Super Chats. He says, Devils win. Devils win. Yeah, so tomorrow, Game Day Live, Devils After Dark at American Whiskey. Game Day Live will be on the stage in the middle of Edison Place outside American Whiskey. Just coming in over the wire, our guests around 5:45 p.m. Eastern. Those that are going to the game, the Devils-Rangers game, Game 2, our special guest on Game Day Live on the stage will be Chico Resch, live. Oh, you're supposed to have a more audible reaction to that, Nick.
Woo!
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Also, want to plug Game 3 viewing party at American Whiskey. Brat Pack has made his announcement. We are also involved, but I don't think I'm allowed to say who the special guest is yet, but
I bet
you want to be
an
there.
Energizing guest.
Yes, you want to be there.
A very energizing guest.
It will change up the mojo if the Devils are down 0-2. It will be a game changer. That's all I have to say. Would you say, Nick? I told you off air.
I feel energized thinking about this guest.
Yeah. Felix is asking a Chico Eats segment at American Whiskey. Thank you for reminding me. We should do that. Botchagaloop says Nick Villano for president. Yeah.
My wife says I'm not allowed to get into politics, so sorry, guys.
No, president of the Devils fan club.
Oh.
Yeah.
That still sounds political.
Oh, okay. All right. So that is Saturday at American Whiskey, across the street from Prudential Center. We will have that viewing party. More details to follow. Also, I haven't had confirmation yet, but there's going to be branded Let's Go Devils podcast drink specials at American Whiskey tomorrow. There may be a Sam Wu shot.
What is the Sam Wu shot?
I don't know yet, but there's actually going to be a Sam Wu shot. So if you don't like me, have a shot.
Well, yeah. See, that would be funny if they did an I love Sam Wu shot and I hate Sam Wu shot, and you can kind of calculate which one sold more.
You know what? I must go back to the drawing board.
Sam, I'm in communications, and that's just one step away from marketing. So maybe it's just maybe I'm close to my journey set in life, but just not quite there. So
you know what? I should have asked you because, like, in the group text, Beer Baron's going to kill me when I say this, but you know, in the group text, like Beer Baron, his ADD is so bad that I literally asked him, Beer Baron, let me know if you're going to be on the podcast tomorrow. I know you're with your daughter. You know, he's taking his daughter to the game. He may not be able to go on the podcast because I'm trying to be respectful, because I need a plan.
Yeah.
And you know what his response was? He tweets no, he doesn't tweet. He puts a link of that tweet of the wives and girlfriends' new outfit.
Oh yeah, Christie's tweet.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, Beer Baron, are you going to answer the question? I still don't know right now.
He's hanging out with the wives and girlfriends. He ain't got time for you, Sam. He's hanging out with the wives and girlfriends.
He could be. Maybe that's
all right,
sign.
Sam.
All right, yeah. So,
speaking of ADD, let's end the podcast.
Yeah, so I got my plugs done. Well, I want to thank all those tuning in. Remember, Game Day Live tomorrow at the stage. On the stage, I should say, at Edison Place outside of American Whiskey. Be there. Chico Resch will be our guest live in front of a live crowd. And I hope you guys are going to be chanting. We'll try to get that going. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Till next time, let's go Devils.